I think when you know the order, because it's God first, then man, then wife, then children. When that order remains that way, then you are able to appeal. And I had a married woman once she told us that there are times that they discuss something with her husband, maybe it's a project, and she has an idea, or let's say like they're thinking about buying a family car. So they go to the dealership, they see the variety of cars, and she picks. She's like, hey, I think this one, itatoshea watoto, it's very nini, it's not consuming a lot of fuel, and they agree. But when she goes home, the car that the guy will buy is a different car, and she's like, oh no. So I was wasting my energy.
Hello and welcome to another exciting podcast, After YP. We are so glad that you could join us today. And today we have an amazing lineup of guests. And my guests today are all women. And we are so excited to just decipher the topic of what do men really want. And this is something you really don't want to miss on. And I will give my guests just a few minutes or seconds to introduce themselves, starting from my far right.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Stacy Ugeru. I'm part of the Young Professionals Fellowship, currently serving as the Deputy HOD, as well as the lead for the ladies community, and I'm excited to be here. Yeah.
Hello everyone, my name is Monica Wanjiko, and by the grace of God I serve here at Sitam Valley Road in the pastoral team, and I'm also a young professional, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Karen Ondwasi. I'm a young woman part of the women ministry, and I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us. I just remembered I forgot to introduce myself. So I am Brenda, and today I'm privileged to host these amazing women. I also serve in YP and also in women ministry as Karen. So today we have topics. We hope to cover a lot of things, especially in terms of women and a woman in church. So I would just want us to start on a light note. How can one transition from just being you're single, you're used to your independence? How can one now transition from that and even now get into a relationship, and now that probably leads into marriage? And this is in a space because most of us, I believe, are single. So how can we come from, you're here, or of course we can also introduce and say if you're, you can also tell us if you're single. Maybe you're married and we don't know. So maybe you wedded last night and we don't know, but yes, and you didn't invite us. So how can someone, you're used to your space, your house, your money, your everything, but then there's marriage, and marriage, it's not the same as being single. So how can one transition into now moving into that space of now, yes, this is serious, now it's not about me, it's now about, now we are two, we are one, and now we want to raise a family. Yes.
I think it's the struggle for women to transition from singleness to marriage. The bone of contention is usually submission. Because women have no issues, living with someone. Sometimes you can have two single ladies who are roommates, they share space, but they don't need to submit to one another. And so the bone of contention becomes having to live not just with a person, but now come under that person's authority and leadership. And I think it's just a matter of mindset. Let me tell you, because when you go to work, for instance, you're saying you're independent, you're single, you're thriving, you're a businesswoman, whatever you are, there's a level of submission that you're already doing right now. Like if you're employed, you have to submit to your employer. I mean, you have to abide to the laws of the company, otherwise you'll be kicked out. So I don't really understand why people find it so hard to now translate that in a marriage, because it almost feels like nikukaliwa, kuonewa. So I think the easiest way to prepare for that transition is just to start submitting where you are right now. Just start submitting. If you need to honor your parents more, do that now, because there's no you're going to be able to do that in a marriage if you've never submitted anywhere ever. you know. So we are always under some kind of authority. So it's just a matter of perception. It's just how you view it. Yeah, that would be my answer.
Oh, wow, that's so profound.
And I think per se the issue as well for us ladies is we don't trust the person we are called to submit to. So what if this person is leading me in the wrong direction, or I don't trust that they have the best intentions for us? Yeah. So what's that case for us?
I think it's just a matter of like choosing better.
Yeah.
Like
Actually,
No, that's where it starts. That's where it honestly starts.
maybe your picker is broken. Yeah. So what you're using to pick a guy could be the wrong thing. Maybe you're looking at looks, you're looking at height, you're looking at complexion. I'm preaching to myself. But you're not focusing on, can this man lead? Where is this man going? Does he have a vision? What is he building? And if he's not building anything, then what are you coming to do? Yeah.
For me, I think one of the ways to prepare is really learn about what truly marriage is. I think as single women, there's like a thing we have in our head on what marriage is supposed to be, you know. We want to come with our rules, you know, it's again what you said about submission. And I think it's very important to really know it's a God thing, you know. You don't want to be arguing with what God has ordained it to be. So I think it's very important to understand what number one it is. And I think like you said, all of us struggle with submission, wondering, why am I submitting to you? I'm used to living my own life. Why would I want someone snoring close to me again? You know, like it's so many things, especially when you've been single for a long time. But I think one of the things is just to learn about what does really God intend with this, and just to work on ourselves, because most of these battles are internal. You're fighting. You know how sometimes women say we don't want to get married, but is that the case really, or is it because you've been hurt too many times? Is it because you've been frustrated? So I think we need to do a lot of internal work and a lot of asking God to guide us, you know. Speaking from an OG who didn't want any guidance, I think it's just asking God to guide us.
Actually, that is true, and that brings in now the question of, yes, we submit to certain extents, and this, as Pasi has said, it's about the guy you choose. So could we say that it could be in relation to, if you end up choosing maybe someone that's not intended, then that would mean that submission is something you'd really struggle with. So that means that if you get someone that has been ordained by God, as Karen has said, then you're able to submit to that. But then again, you know, there's also that struggle and the question of submission. Even in church, when you hear submission, you're like, wait, what? I go to that house, I have to, like, you know, pick up his socks and like that cannot be me. So society has really made submission to be really bad. So now, what is submission really? How can we define submission as God intended submission to be? Because how God, I believe, intended this for this to be is the man is the leader and the woman submits. And there's that whole context. The woman is the bride. So how can we, you know, in the Christian context, yes, we've submitted at work. You know, at work it's easy because, you know, at the end of the month there is a salary, there's insurance there. But now in marriage, it's now the bigger picture. Like how can we even now change that mindset and not just think, when we're thinking of submission, we're just thinking about these things of, oh, unajua nitakaliwa. So how can we even be able to just prepare and say that now this is what submission is, because that is where everything begins.
I'd say submission, I view it as strength under control. It's a strength. It's not a weakness. And once you understand that it's a strength, then you're able to use it and apply it effectively. Because if you look at scripture in Genesis, Adam was alone. It's God's idea for Adam to have a helper. So God comes in and says, it's not good for this guy to be alone. Let me make him a helper. But what happens when the helper comes? She actually has control over the man. She's the one who gave him the fruit. She was the wife. She was the, weaker vessel, but she had control. So, but when that strength can be put under the proper structure, then it can achieve good things. It doesn't have to be used negatively. So I think as women, submission is a form of strength. And if you look at the example of Jesus, he was God, right, in the flesh, but he still washed feet.
Yeah.
You know, he told them one time, his disciples were telling him, oh, when you get to heaven, tunataka kukua on the left and on the right side of you. But he told them, the greatest among you is a servant. And so I dare say, even in a marriage, I think it should be a competition of who can serve the other better. It's not really a matter of who can sit on the other one. No, nimesema, nikikohoa. You know, if I say jump, you first jump, then you ask how high. No, it's about understanding our strengths and realizing that God made us very uniquely so that we can come and fill in the gaps. This man cannot really fulfill his purpose on his own. And I'm not saying that every man is going to marry or every woman will be married. That's a whole other podcast again. But for the ones that God has called to marriage, it's so that they can complement one another. And God has made a suitable helper for every man. And so the goal for a woman is to make sure that I am a suitable helper. In and of myself, I am a wife, even in my singleness, so that the guy comes around, he'll find a wife, and then he'll find a good thing, and obtain favor.
Yeah, and I think also around submission, it doesn't necessarily mean, as Pasi has said, you're being a doormat.
Yes,
It's not you're under his command. It means you're adhering to his authority, and you're just honoring that position of authority, and you're there to help, also advise. And if he chooses to, because sometimes he doesn't always listen to you. I think I've had the privilege to speak with a lot of married people, and so sometimes as wives, it's not all the time that you will agree, and even if you see very clearly that this path will lead us to this person is making a mistake in this direction, but the man still says we go this direction. Sometimes it means submitting to that direction. So it doesn't always. So you're also there as an advisor, and it doesn't mean you're less. It means you're just comparable, because actually the word of God says someone who is comparable to him. So it doesn't mean that you're less. You're just on his side and supporting him in that.
For sure.
For me, I think submission also, you need to also learn. You know, I think sometimes, and again, speaking theoretically, you might be a single woman, you've lived your whole life single, you have your money, and you might get married, you know, and sometimes it's really difficult to change your habits. So I think even when people get married, they should have grace for each other to learn as they move on, you know. If today I'm not listening, let's talk about it. Tomorrow I'll listen. I think let's not look at submission as a way to look at mistakes, you know. Let's get into it and say, how are we learning today? Are we doing better in submission? Are we giving feedback? And I also think submission comes from a place where you've killed pride, you know. Pride is a very big thing in relationships, marriages, even in friendships, you know, where you're always wanting for yourself. Like you've said, it's not a competition, you know. When you get to that point where, you know, how there's a song we sing, Mungu uongezeke, I decrease, you know, where really may I decrease, God, so that you can be seen in me. I think when you get to that point where you're willing to, I don't need to win. What am I winning for? You come home and be nice to me, you know? So I think when we get to that place where we really don't want to win, we are willing to go through the process, we are willing to have it wrong and still get it right, I think it really makes the process worthwhile.
That's actually interesting. And there's a point mentioned even in your singlehood, you learn how to submit. You basically, because if your vision is you want to get married, you start working on yourself. There's something that is usually said that you attract who you are. So if you're not, this simply means that basically, if you're not really working on yourself, if you are girlfriend material, you've not worked on yourself, as you've said, because there's wounds to heal, there's a lot of things to learn and relearn. If you've not worked on that, then most probably you're going to end up with someone who has the same struggles. So I think the bottom line is also submission is something that doesn't just happen overnight. So it's something that you really need to work on, even as you plan to transition through this through this period. That's interesting, because this is the view of submission that we don't see. The only view we see is, I've said, butoka, I've said I want tea. Where's my tea? That is the kind of submission that we see out here. And when someone thinks of, oh my God, I have my bed, I make my own money, I go on vacation when I want, I go to, I can hang out with my friends how I want, and then this person wants to come in. Of course, maybe there's the story of, maybe sharing bills or wherever the plan is, and then he still is there telling me, nimesema unilete chai, nimesema, you know, so that view of society is now what really makes submission really difficult. So we come from a point of heart in terms of submission, because I believe submission is not really a bad thing, because even as Christians we have submitted to God. There's a point where, you know, you're like, hey, this is not going to work, hey God, just take over, let me just keep going, you take over. When you decide that's it, and that is the I feel like that slightly is the essence of submission. And I was listening to was it TBN? So I was listening to a podcast, and what they were saying is, when you're submitting, you're actually following, you totally believe and trust that this person is leading you in a good direction, you know. So it is that belief. So and again, you see, submission again ties into trust. So a lot of our trust has been broken. So now how are we even able to regain that trust back? Because submission is really built on a lot of other things. So how are we able to regain that trust? Because now when I'm submitting to you, I trust that where you're leading is the place, like I don't have a problem. If you lead us there and something happens, I know you'll figure it out, a way will be found. So now when now, how can we even, you know, work on that trust? How in from the Christian perspective, how can we be able to bring back that trust that has been lost?
Can I say something just to add on what you said? I think even as the media, the way we portray submission is really bad. I think it's our role as Christians to take up this space, you know. Can we have marriages that are submitting in the correct way? Can we read about them? Can we watch about them? I think you know how media it is. It's human rights versus money. So there's always that struggle. But can we have our own, especially you people, leaders from church, as young people, are we able to showcase marriages that are of God, that we're submitting the correct way, no one is oppressing? I think when we do that, we also show what Christ looks like in marriage, and we change the whole conversation, you know, so that we are not, like we've said, you're not thinking it's just poking fingers, but you know it's a partnership. I think that's what I wanted to add.
It's a partnership.
And I wanted to respond to that issue of trust, because you again have to ask yourself, what am I trusting? Where, am I giving the burden of trust to a human being, or am I trusting God? Is it my husband that I'm trusting, or is it God who led me to this spouse that I'm calling a husband? You know, so I think when you know the order, because it's God first, then man, then wife, then children. When that order remains that way, then you are able to appeal. And I like, I had a married woman once she told us that there are times that they discuss something with her husband, maybe it's a project, and she has an idea, or let's say like they're thinking about buying a family car. So they go to the dealership, they see the variety of cars, and she picks. She's like, hey, I think this one, itatoshea watoto, it's very nini, it's not consuming a lot of fuel, and they agree. But when she goes home, the car that the guy will buy is a different car, and she's like, oh no. So I was wasting my energy and my words, you know, to convince this man. But she learned in the process to go and appeal to God and bypass the man, because now clearly this is not working, but I know who I can go to, who is a fair person, who is a just judge, and he's God over this man also. So this man hata nisikiza, but atasikiza mwenye alimuumba. So the power of appeal can help to regain that trust, because you go to God and say, okay, God, I'm reporting this man. Akufanya hivi. And in the process, you also have to be ready, because God might also humble you. He might also humble you and tell you, okay, this is how you need to go about it. So, but I think also communication can help to regain the trust. But it goes back to foundations, because even during the process of courtship and dating, what are you talking about on those dates? Because
What's your favorite color?
It's not about colors. Colors, children. These are the things you need to be testing out to see. Like maybe even when you say, no, I don't want us to go for a date at this location. Let's go to this. Let's see how, say no sometimes, so that you see how no is taken and how it is, whether it is being heard, whether it's being, and then express your disappointment and see how that works early on, because foundations really matter. And then the person that you end up marrying, you have to be okay with the fact that that they might never change. Because sometimes you marry potential. Sometimes you're marrying a raw material and you're expecting that it's going to change.
God will cancel that.
Yeah, so if whoever you pick, you have to be prepared to live with that person even if they never change. So that means that the selection process has to be better refined. Yes, those are my views.
And speaking about submission, I think it's quite harder for corporate babes. For those ones, okay, sorry for using that word, corporate ladies. Yeah, so I think it's so much, especially those ones who are like really advanced even in education. You've become a doctor and you've already attained your, let's say my second name is Wambui, so I'm Dr. Wambui, and now I have to give the doctor title to another man. So it sometimes becomes quite hard for us, but I think that's now where the point of choosing well, it's really important. And I don't know why we should not trivialize this period of dating. This is one of the most important decisions you're making. Yeah, I think it's very important for us ladies to take this period, the dating and the courtship period, very important. We really need to be on our knees and ask God for that. We're not necessarily asking for a perfect man, but we're asking for somebody who we can trust their vision. So it's really important for us to make the right choice so that it's easier for us even to submit, because the word of God remains the word of God. If you've been called to submit, he doesn't change the standard because this man is less, doesn't hear or not. Yeah. In a soft way, so we're not very aggressive, but we have a way of convincing men. Adam ate the apple because of our power. We changed the whole dynamics of everything. So we have that power of influence in our own way, which is quite different from how men do. I think we're also very nurturing, and even that's how we've been built, even physically. Like we have the